Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Lena's Adventure Small Talk. I'm so excited to have you all here today. We have a great show. I'm so excited about our guest today. So, first of all, let's get started with these books. I always start off about the books. So, you all know it's Christmas. So we have Christmas with Lena. So if you haven't ordered your Christmas with Lena, go to my website and order Christmas with Lena. You can also get Lena's Adventure. That's where it all started. And we also have the new book, Gino the Giraffe. So I'm so
Yeah.
excited about the books. Yes. And I'm so excited for you all supporting and what you do. And I'm so excited about this show. We are on our 10th show. This is our 10th show. So I'm so excited. And so we have a great show. So today we have Minister Lena Lassiter. Hi, Minister Lena.
Hi, Regina. Thank you so much for having me.
Great. So, Minister Lena Lasser is the founder and the president of Forever Healed. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose vision is to continually help people recover from the impact of death, divorce, and other losses, and to help them bridge the gap between the feelings of despair and healing. So, please, Minister Lena, tell us more about yourself.
Well, Regina, first of all, I just want to thank you for having me here tonight. I really love what you are doing for the children in the foster care, those who are transitioning out. The work that you're doing is amazing. So thank you so much for what you do. So again, I am Lena Lassiter, yes, founder and president of Forever Healed. We are a nonprofit, and what we do is we help those who are suffering from pain due to a loss of any kind. We want them to just reclaim their lives. We want them to restore. And more importantly, we want them to recover. We want them to recover from the pain, Regina. And we do this several different ways. We offer one-to-one grief recovery classes. We also offer group grief recovery classes. We go into corporate America and we talk about the hidden costs of grief in the workplace. We also do workshops at churches and talk about, grief and wellness in the church and traumatic events, in the church. So with that being said, well, how is this woman qualified to do any of this? So I have my master's in human services counseling with my concentration in PTSD trauma. And of course, all that definitely grief, triggers a lot of that. And then I'm an advanced grief recovery method specialist. I'm certified, in grief recovery. And I'm on the Bereavement Coalition Leadership Planning Board. I'm also on the Bereavement Coalition for Homicide Survivor Providers. So I'm on that coalition as well. But what I'm really, really excited about is that we also partner with the Richmond Police Department, their Victims Witness program, and we actually offer our services to, those individuals as well. So trying to give back just like you're doing in the community.
Awesome. Awesome. Look at that. Look at that resume. Wow. So, Minister Lena, what does grief during the holidays mean to you? Like, can you talk to us about healthy ways to cope and during the holidays?
Yeah, Regina, I'm more than happy to talk about some healthy coping, mechanisms, some tools. But I think before we start there, wow, that was just a loaded question. Okay. So can I just educate your viewers just on what grief is? Okay. And then if it's okay, I'd like to talk about the grief that may be experienced by those who are in the foster care system. I want to start out by saying this. Why do I do this? Why am I even passionate about this? Why would someone ever want to get into the field of grief? So as a child, I was abused by a parent, physically, emotionally, and mentally. So that cycle of abuse, followed me until, early adulthood. And I entered into an abusive, marriage with, my first husband, because that's what I had become accustomed to. And then in 2007, just endured multiple losses to where I almost wanted to just give up on life. My mother had me at the age of 15, so she was a child herself. And she had a younger brother, Regina, so she and my grandmother were pregnant at the same time.
Oh,
So
wow.
Keith and I were 6 months apart. So he grew up more like a brother to me. So when he was murdered, I just
Mm,
felt like my whole world was shattered. But
wow.
prior to that, being a child, being abused, and what happens when that abuse comes from a parent, right? Someone who's supposed to love you and someone who's supposed to nurture you and someone who's supposed to protect you. Well, what happens is that it shatters your whole trust system.
Mm,
It shatters how you bond. And it manifests, when you are older. So the same way with some of these children, in foster care, right? So they have gone through traumatic events. So it will impact the way they trust and how they bond.
mm,
So when people ask me, why do I do what I do? Because I want to help others and to let them know that there is life on the other side of that, of those traumatic events. So I just wanted to share that. This is why this is a passion of mine. So to have my brother murdered in 2007, to be able to work with the Richmond Police Department and to help individuals, who have survived, someone being homicide in their family, is real critical and is real important to me. So
wow.
again, thank you for having me on. So let's talk about grief and the holidays, right? So
Mhm.
our memories, Regina, our bonds, and our love are constant reminders of our losses. So when it comes to the holiday time, witnessing others celebrate during the holiday season, it can be challenging for some people, right? So why? Why is that? And grief can be especially challenging during the holidays because of those reasons.
Mhm.
We're seeing other people celebrate. And what if your loss is that somebody's not here? What if your loss is that you don't have that close relationship with your family? They're still living, but you guys don't have that close relationship. So people start to, feel triggers, during the holiday because of
Mhm.
that, right? The family bond.
Yeah.
So I want to explain what grief is. So grief is the conflicting feelings caused by the end of or change in a familiar pattern or behavior. So grief is more, Regina, than a matter of feelings, because
Mm,
people think that it's just this feeling. So while grief may be the most painful experience that we may endure in life, it's also
mhm.
a pure expression of love, because the individuals who lose something is separated from it, and they're deprived of that person or that object or that relationship. And because we were taught at an early age that painful and hurtful feelings should be avoided at all costs, we tend to mask our pain,
Yeah.
right, with activities in an effort to numb or to not feel. Because we're taught, when you're a kid, you may hurt yourself. And then we learn to eat. You lose
Mm,
a pet, and then that pet is replaced. And then we learn to replace things, right? Our
right.
hearts are broken. And then we're told that there are other fish in the sea. And then we start trying to replace people with people. But we never address our pain. So, and as kids, the adults want to make us happy. They
Mhm.
want us to be happy. So when you're feeling pain or uncomfort, as an adult, I want to make you happy. I want to make you smile. But what we do in turn is we teach the kids how to put on a mask
Mm,
and hide how they're feeling.
yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to explain, what grief is. So that definition in and of itself, Regina, lets us know that grief is not just about death.
Right.
So a lot of times we hear the term grief and we just assume that it's associated with losing someone, right? So the grief that's experienced by those in foster care system, as well as foster care providers, is called disenfranchised grief.
Mm,
So when an individual is grieving, he or she may feel a void by the end of or change in that familiar pattern or behavior. So people, again, often associate that grief, right, with a death.
right.
However, there are several losses that may trigger the emotions of grief, to include abortion, perinatal deaths, separation, loss of body parts, and then even those who are in the foster care system.
Mm,
So that disenfranchised grief is a grief that people experience when they incur a loss that's not openly accepted.
Wow.
It's not publicly mourned, and is not socially supported. Miscarriages, suicide, separation. And again, those are who are in the foster care system. Because people may tend to say, well, you're still here, so you should be grateful. So they don't look at it as a loss.
Mm.
So it's not publicly accepted. So that's why it falls into the category of disenfranchised grief. But children who are in the system, they grieve the loss of stability. They grieve the loss, believe it or not, Regina, of their toys. Those beautiful books that you write, their books,
Right.
their rooms, their family members, their friends, if they had to relocate their school, right? So these children, they don't have either parent present. So it may impact their ability, again, to trust and to bond with others. And you know what? Regardless of what the neglect may have been, they want to be with their parents.
Right.
And then let's talk about the stigma around being brought up in foster care. Like, these children are already dealing with so much. And then there are labels that are placed on them for being brought up in foster care. And then you have some people that will argue that there is no loss if the child didn't know their parents. So, you know, what's their loss? They didn't lose anything. They didn't even know their parents. Well, I beg to differ.
Right.
And I disagree with that assumption, because there's a loss of expectations in relationships. So that child may grieve what they believe, you know, to have been a healthy relationship with their parents. They may grieve not knowing their family medical history.
Right.
When they go to the doctor, what do they always ask you? Your family history.
Right.
So then it could be some embarrassment there, and then that's a trigger, right? They may feel rejected, unloved, and unworthy. So around the holidays, Regina, they may grieve the lack of even having, you know, their family, their blood-related family. And in some cases, that, you know, even if they were adopted and had a loving family, there are still triggers that they don't know the root, their biological family, right? They're not around. And then sometimes they suffer because they don't want to hurt the family that may have adopted them and treated them well. So who am I to go to them and tell them I want to find my biological parents?
Right.
Or I want to know, you know, my roots and where I came from. So then they feel like they have to protect the foster parents, or the, you know, the parents who adopted them. They don't want them to, you know, to be in pain. So then they start to suppress their emotions. So I also just want to talk, you know, a little bit about what the children in the foster care may be dealing with.
Right.
Yeah. So what you are doing, Regina, is so critical.
Thank you.
And it's so important, and it's so needed. So holidays are clearly some of the roughest journeys we have to navigate through after a loss. So finding purpose, Regina, in the loss is as individual as we are. So we often say that, you know, a part of us died with them, but finding purpose is also realizing that a part of them still lives within us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Patricia Brown Coleman says, wow, Minister Lena, you are educating me on grief tonight. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Miss Pat.
So how can we talk about how to honor like our loved ones and doing, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the healthy ways to cope first, right? So we talked about what grief is. So healthy ways to cope are going to be awareness and acceptance.
Okay.
So acknowledge the season. So if it's difficult for you, it's difficult. And maybe it's not, because we have been so conditioned to believe that we have to feel a certain way during the holidays, right? So just take the pressure off, y'all. Take that pressure off. And then you have to set realistic expectations. So sometimes when you're grieving, you can't even think straight. Sometimes you are exhausted. So you have to accept assistance from others. You may not have the energy to cook, to shop, or to even clean. So try a few online services, catering, or help from others. Listen, there's no shame in my game, Regina. I do not mind getting my groceries delivered, to my door if I
Right.
need to. And then do it your way.
Right.
There's no right or wrong way to handle holidays, during, when you're grieving. You have to decide what's right for you and then do it. And then be okay with participating in the parts that are meaningful to you, and allow yourself to feel whatever it is that you are feeling. Just because you don't feel what someone else is feeling, it doesn't mean that your feelings aren't validated.
Right.
And then we have to extend grace to our family members who may not grieve or feel the way that we feel. You wouldn't believe, I have family members who have said that, well, so-and-so seems so, jovial, and they're joking and they're smiling and they're laughing. How can they be doing that, right? During this time of our loss. I mean, they're angry because that person is not responded in a way that they feel they should be responded. But we have to remember that our relationships are unique and individual. So our grief is going to be unique and individual. And then lean in on others. Make time to chat with a trusted friend, a family member, or another griever. Draw comfort from one another. And when I say draw comfort from one another, draw that comfort to where you're kind of uplifting one another. But don't compare losses. Because how many of us have ever, injured ourselves? We might have, cut our legs, and we might tell somebody, yeah, I had to get 4 stitches. And they say, oh, well, my leg was almost torn completely off. Right. Mm-hmm. And then you feel like, well, maybe I'm not justified because, my loss is not as severe as theirs. Well, who said that?
Right.
But that's what happens when we start to compare. And then journal. If you journal, and some people will even say this, I don't even know where to start when it comes to journaling. People say journal, but how do I even do that? I'm gonna give you a few tips. If you're angry, write in your journal, I'm angry. Write it down. And then write down why you are angry. I'm angry because. And then write down some things that will make you feel better. And that's how you can start journaling. Just journal by being authentic and true, and just write down exactly how you feel. And then we have to be mindful of numbing or toxic behaviors. So sometimes when we're grieving, we start to overeat. Anybody stress eat? Who's watching tonight, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes we overspend. So we have to be careful about those behaviors. So walk instead, run, jog. Again, make sure that you're journaling, because heavy smoking and heavy drinking, all those things are toxic. And we just use it to mask our pain, to numb our pain. And that's not healthy. And then the last thing, Regina, with the coping is just to be patient. So avoid getting frustrated with yourself and others, right? Your friends may mean well when they tell you to snap out of it, and just tell them that, you know what, I just need some time. Mm-hmm. So be patient. And then you asked me about honoring our loved ones. I want people to know to do this however you do it. And I want those of you who are watching to please share some things that you do. So one idea is a family paint night or a family picture night. So you can send your pictures ahead of time to the artist, and they will actually print them out on the canvas. And your family can go and you can paint your favorite picture of your loved one. Oh, wow. If you don't want it, and then you can talk about the photo. This is my favorite photo because, or he or she was doing whatever in this photo. This was their favorite place. If you don't want to do the paint night, you can just do photos. Just share the photos and talk about them. You can do a personalized ornament on your tree. You can actually have their picture inserted inside of the ornament on your tree. You can do that as well. You can do a rock garden. And you may say, okay, well, how do I do that? Put some of their favorite sayings on the rock. So on their birthdays or an anniversary of their death, you go out and add another rock, right? Some of their favorite TV shows or something to make you laugh about them. And you just write it on the rock to memorialize them. You can cook their favorite dish. Or you can do something that the two of you used to enjoy doing together, on that particular day. You can write a poem about your loved one and you can read it out loud, or it can just be for you. You can have a moment of silence, or you can light a candle. And some people, believe it or not, they find comfort in visiting the cemetery. If that brings you comfort, you go right ahead.
Yeah.
But for some folks, going to the cemetery is like it's final and they
Mm.
can't do it. And again, just play their favorite movie or their favorite song. I put on Run DMC. That was Keith's, favorite, rap group. I put it on sometimes on the weekend. I'm dancing around the kitchen, and I'm cooking.
Mm.
So there you go, Regina. There's some tips on coping and how we can honor the loved ones.
Awesome. This is great information. I'm actually writing some of this down. And you said something that I'm funny about that too. I'm like, where do I start with? A lot of times people talk about journal, and I'm like, where do I start? And you just said it. How you feel. Just start it wherever you are, how you feel.
Yeah.
And and I was thinking about I'm going to share this because I think about the holidays and grief. So my son, he just moved into his first apartment, right? And it's a very nice apartment. It's downtown, it's new, it's really nice. And when we went there to move him in, everything seems great. So he doesn't know a lot of people in the building, right? So about 2 weeks ago, his neighbor got killed. And he heard it because he was in the house and he called me. He said, "Mom, I think something is really going on next door." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He said, I'm hearing gunshots. And I'm like, "What?" I said, "You sure?" He said, I heard something. So, I said, "Well, just kind of stay in the house. Let's call the rental people downstairs to make sure everything is all right." So we called the rental people and they were like, "It's okay. Um, Everything's going to be fine." That's what they told us. So anyway, my long story short, my son told me that there was like 15 cops outside his door. And I'm like, "What?" At this point, I'm like, I'm ready to go down there. But I was like, "What's going on?" So come to find out, we looked on channel 12 like a couple of minutes later, and it says victim dead um, on arrival. And come to find out, it was domestic. A brother had killed a brother.
Oh, wow.
So we talking about grief. So I immediately, and my son, we've been talking about this for 2 weeks, but I immediately started grieving for the mother.
Yeah.
Because it was 2 days, actually it was 2 days before Thanksgiving. And I told my son, that mother during this time has to be devastated because not only did she lose a son, but she lost another one to, jail because they had said that he would, he turned himself in. So when you think about grief in the holidays, can you just imagine? I didn't know these people. My son didn't know these people, but he's grieving. We're both grieving because he's seeing these people in and out. They're his neighbors.
Right.
So I'm hoping he's watching today because this grief, the grief that he feels for somebody that he doesn't even know, and the grief that I feel because I'm a mother.
Right.
So, like you talked about, grief comes in so many levels. We don't even have to know the people, but we can grieve for them.
Yeah.
And the news at this time is it's sad. Watching the news at this time, social media when people are just, dying and, so grief is really real. And I just wanted to share that story because I was thinking about the mother and the grief of a son, two sons.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, that's just so traumatic, right? In the way in which the son died. So the mother's gonna have to go through, just even that process. And
Yeah.
then forgiving the other son or not.
Yeah.
Right? And then, when you lose someone because of homicide, Virginia, you also go through judicial grief because you have to go through the court system.
Yes.
And you have to sometimes watch pictures and videos and, So it all triggers your grief. And then you go back for the sentencing. And then there it is, grief.
Yeah.
And think about, this is her son,
Yes.
both her sons, right? I remember every time the person who killed my brother went up for parole, we had to always go write letters. That caused more grief. It's almost like you're starting all over again because you're reliving, that incident. So it's horrific what they go through. But I think it's a good segment for us to even talk about. So how do you help the griever?
Yes.
How do we help the griever? So we have to keep the lines of communication open. And we have to respect the preferences of the family. So if the family wants to be alone, allow them to be alone. And then we have to be a good listener. Because as human beings, we want to fix things. And we have to remember that the griever is not broken. Their heart is hurt. They have a hurt heart. They have a bleeding heart, right? So we have to be a good listener. There's not much you can say to help, but you can provide relief by just listening. So we want to avoid giving unsolicited advice.
Mm-hmm.
And then we want to offer assistance. So don't ask them. Don't say, hey, I'm here if you need me, call me. Mm-mm. Offer the assistance. Be their transportation. Make calls for them if need be. Go do chores. You can hire a maid service to go to their house if you don't want to go do it yourself. You can make meals or have meals sent to them. And then you can help them find support. So you can look up support groups in their area. And even if it's applicable to their death, so like this mother, right? Support groups for homicide survivors. And you can look them up in the area. Mothers who have lost children. And you can have a list of resources for the griever and you just can hand it to them. So when they're ready, they don't have to look it up. And then speak carefully. So consider what you would like to hear, right? If you were in a similar situation. So we have to avoid those unhelpful or hurtful comments like they're in a better place. Or for a parent who has lost a child saying things like, well, you can have another one. Well, they wanted that kid. Right? And then sometimes we wonder why people don't even have faith because we start saying things like, well, God knew what was going to happen. God knows best. So then you got people thinking that when bad things happen, it's God.
Yeah.
But we don't think about that when we're saying these type of things. So we have to make sure that we are speaking carefully. So think about what you would want to hear. And sometimes it's probably nothing. Just want to be a good listener. And then we have to remind them, Regina, that they're loved. So just a quick text sometimes. Hey, thinking about you. Love you. Those things, those little reminders can be reassuring to a griever.
Wow. Well, this has been so helpful. Tanya Pleasant says, thank you so much. This is some good ideas. I'm going to start doing some of these things. So yeah, so this has been awesome.
Thanks, Tanya.
Also, can you tell us a little bit about the book? I have a book up, Pursue. Is some of these stories about grief in this book? I mean, how can you tell us about the book?
Yeah, so Pursue is a book that I co-authored with several, women entrepreneurs and women who have conquered, some challenges that they may have had in life as well. So my chapter is chapter 3. So I talk about the pursuit of healing. So my chapter just talks about a few things I shared tonight, right? Just some things losses that I endured, during, my life and how through God, I was able to, get victory and to be able to get healing and to be able to walk in a healed place. So one thing that I did write in the book is that we tend to say, broken crayons still color, and they do. And I understand what people mean when they say that, but they're harder to manage. So you definitely want to be in a healed state. You don't want to remain in a broken state. I'm not saying that God can't use you in a broken state because we know that it's him and it's not us.
Right.
However, he's a God of healing. He's a God of wholeness. He's a God of wellness. So we shouldn't remain in a broken state. So we got to be careful about what we say and these cliches that we say, because
Mhm.
absolutely a broken crayon can still color, but they're harder to hold, aren't they, Regina? They're harder to color with. They might put cramps in your finger. So we have to understand, that we may be damaging other people when we're walking in unforgiveness and we're walking in bitterness and we're walking in anger, and we're not healed. We got to think about the souls that we're killing along the way. So we want to be in a healed state and pursue, our healing.
Amen. That is awesome. So everybody, if you want to get the book, I have the link down at the bottom. Please look at the link. And this has been great. I mean,
Thank you.
a lot of times it's not enough time. Sometimes I say we need, more shows and just we need more. And then also, can you tell them how to follow you on your show? Because I'm sure everybody want to know. You have great topics. You do a great job with your show, Forever Healed. So can you tell everybody about your show and when they can catch it?
Sure. So we go live under my nonprofit, Forever Healed. So you can catch it on YouTube. You can watch us, via Facebook, our Facebook page. It also streamed live on my personal page, Lena Lassiter, on my personal LinkedIn page. And again, YouTube. So we're out there. So we go live twice a month. So once a month, you'll hear me and I talk about a topic dealing with grief or trauma or healing or wellness. And we'll give you some nuggets and some tips on how to remain healthy and healed. And then I bring on an expert in the community. And that expert can just be someone who's lived it, right? Who's conquered it, or it could be a licensed counselor. And we talk about different losses that individuals may go through. What's cool about it, Regina, is that people actually send us topics now. So
Oh,
it makes it a
wow.
lot easier. So every month we have a particular theme. And we talk about, whatever that loss is for that month. So check us out, so twice a month, we come on Mondays at 7 p.m.
Amen. So everybody, please check her out. And guys, you can go back and watch this again. I mean, I think we have like 9 people on, but if you know somebody, share this video and with loved ones and friends. A lot of times, people might miss the show, but they're always available for you to go back and watch and share. Because sometimes I notice after the shows, I'll get people who had came on and watched it that couldn't make it today. So this has been great.
Thank
Um,
you.
I, I I love you and I love what you do. And Minister Lena is I'm telling y'all, she's the real deal. And I thank God for you. And this has been great. And I also want to tell everyone we have another trunk that we're doing. This time we're doing it for a young guy, and he will be getting his trunk for Christmas. So I'm so excited about the trunks that Lena's Adventures are doing. And so we're going to keep the trunks coming, keep the books, coming, and just keep everything coming. And it's so good when we can partner with people like Minister Lena that come on and just share, and that we can help one another. We all doing something great out here. So please go out and support us, because we're doing things that people need to hear about. We're saying things that people need to hear about. So please watch our show on Monday. Um, Come check me out every Tuesday at 8. And it's just been so much a pleasure having you on. We kind of try to stick to the time because I know it's 8 o'clock, but come back on again anytime and just talk about that. So please, people, go back and rewatch it, because I see people wanted to take notes and saying different things. You can always go back. You can always reach out to Minister Lena if you have any personal questions or anything that you would like to talk to her about. You can go on her page, Forever Healed, on Facebook, or Lena Lassiter on Facebook. So thank you, everyone, for joining, and we'll see you next Tuesday.
Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you, Minister.
You're welcome.
Bye bye.
Bye.